Hello everyone. GM. Welcome to Web3 Magic Podcast. Here I talk with builders of some of the most interesting projects across Web3 space. Interesting by the use case, not by the price of a token. So let's warm up with music and let's jump into today's episode. Hello everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Web3 Magic. I am here today with Simon Brown. I met Simon in Istanbul. Hi, Simon.
Hey.
And I would say Simon caught my eye because, he was not doing a typical conference visit, like running through lectures or anything. He basically spent most of the time talking to people. I liked, as he put it, that he likes to spend time around hacker houses. And so I thought it would be fun to have Simon on the show and let him talk about, his impressions from Istanbul, from people and projects he met, which are most likely not projects which were on stage, which you can check anywhere you want, but, those other guys which you wouldn't probably see or meet unless you spend the time in co-working and around hacker houses like Simon did. So I'm happy to have you here, Simon. Can you tell us just a brief start as always? Like, how did you get to crypto?
First of all, thanks for having me on. And it's great to find out about your podcast. So I'm looking forward to kind of subscribing and listening to more shows. So how did I first get into crypto? I think it was about 4 years ago. 5 years ago. Wow. Yeah. So I was working in Fidelity Investments at the time, actually as a UI engineer, building out their complex UIs for their trading applications. And it was around 2017 and I discovered Ethereum, and just got totally pilled. I just got completely obsessed. It was the whole notion of like being able to launch a business with just like a few keystrokes on a computer keyboard. And, you could launch something that could accept money, it could send money, it could organize things. And the fact that you could do it without a lawyer, without a bank loan, without contracts, and just the fact that there was like basically no barrier to entry, it just really captured my imagination. So I started teaching like workshops and stuff on just like free workshops for people to come to learn how to build decentralized applications. And they started proving quite popular because at the time, 2017 was a bit of a bull run and there was a lot of curiosity around Ethereum. Anyway, that led to a job in their R&D research center in their blockchain incubator team, which was a fantastic experience. And I was really grateful to get that experience. So that was like 3 years. And I was doing bits of research, but mostly I was a full stack developer building out prototypes. And over that 3 years, I got more and more into the research, wanted to do it more. So I joined Consensus about almost 2 years ago. And now I just kind of focus on research and advising various different teams and trying to kind of get projects off the ground and stuff like that.
I see. Sounds very cool and like a long journey. And now I get why you like hacker houses, because you're basically hacker by heart.
I do. It's funny, it's kind of ironic that you've asked me to kind of come and talk about Devconnect. I went to one talk in Devconnect. That was like the whole conference. I managed to make it to one talk. I'm not, I think I missed out on a lot of really good talks and a lot of really interesting information, but I find a great deal of value of actually meeting people and just kind of brainstorming and just jamming and riffing on ideas. It was the same in ECC back in July. I spent like $400 or something to get a ticket. I didn't even make it in the door. Didn't even make it into the main conference. But yeah, I was just hanging around in hacker houses, hanging around it, like meeting individual people and kind of brainstorming and doing whiteboarding and stuff. And it's great to see that. I remember like at ECC, I was at Jesse's Hacker House. We were in like this, just behind, like in the yard behind some building in France. And we were just like discussing ideas. There was like 20 people there. And we were talking about one idea for something called Verax. At the time, we didn't have a name. That came months later, but it was an idea for an on-chain attestation registry. And like that again, there's about 20 people just throwing the idea around. And like 6 months later, I think, was it 6 months? We're deployed on chain. There's 250,000 attestations. There's like 5 different teams maintaining it. So it's great to see that, from inception all the way to the project. That's what I really enjoy.
I see. So natural follow-up question is, okay, so what are the ideas which caught your imagination in Istanbul? Because we can talk about them probably in 6 months being a project.
I mean, if you ask every person, they probably have a different answer for you. I think the space is so big now that there's so much happening. It's impossible for one person to know everything that's happening. It's just totally impossible. Some of the things that really that I'm really enthusiastic about for next year are, one is network abstraction and how we're going to handle that. What's the intersection between wallets and different like networks? When I say networks, I mean ecosystems like Starknet ecosystem, the Optimism superchain, all of these various different kind of ecosystems, and like how do the layer threes communicate with each other? How does it look like from the user's perspective? Is a really interesting question. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that evolves. And how like account abstraction continues to evolve. What is it going to look like once we have like real adoption? And what are the dynamics of a unified mempool for ERC 4337, and how does that relate on layer 2 and layer 3, as I said, with network abstraction? That's a really interesting area. The thing that I'm most interested in is probably identity and reputation, which has sort of been baking my noodle for the past like 6 months. I think next year is going to be the year for identity and reputation, and what that means, and what's built on top of those primitives that are being built this year.
I see. Yeah, well, actually, I had the same feeling from Devconnect when I came back from Istanbul. So when I went there, I actually hoped I will hear a lot about identity and also like communication and some security things, which I think are like long-standing problems. But I think I heard a lot more about identity than I expected. So it seemed that it's an area which is moving forward and which is captured minds of many people. I know you wrote a really long article on that, so I'll definitely link to it. But is there anything which stands out around the identity? Like, have you met anybody who has like unique look at it? Who is planning to build on the project you mentioned? Anything which stands out from that space?
Yeah, there's a few things that do stand out from that space. And first of all, I agree with you that there was like a lot more enthusiasm and interest and curiosity about identity and reputation than I had anticipated. I went to Devconnect and I was really pleasantly surprised by the amount of energy in like focused on that area at the moment. But in terms of really interesting projects that stand out for me, there's like code like technology, which is technology that's derived from TLS Notary. So TLS Notary is a technology that must be, I don't know, it's been around for years. And right now it's being built out by the Privacy and Scaling Exploration Group in the Ethereum Foundation. So that's the group that Barry Whitehat leads. I think there's about 80 people in that group. It's like the biggest group in the EF. And they do incredible work.
Okay.
So they are kind of spearheading the research and development into TLS Notary. And there's a whole bunch of projects that have different flavors of that idea. And the idea is simple. You basically co-sign a HTTPS session. And that allows you to drive data that's certified from that session that you can bring anywhere else. So to put it simply, if you log onto your web browser, you see that little padlock at the top of the screen, and that means that you've got an encrypted connection between you and the server. In order to do that, there's like a kind of a handshake, and your browser and the computer, they come to an agreement, and cipher they're going to use, and then they generate keys and they swap keys and they do all this kind of stuff. So there's a way to, if you install a browser extension, that part of the key can be created by your browser and the other part can be created by this other browser extension. And what that allows you to do is effectively you can prove what's on the web browser. Like you can say basically, this web browser had this piece of text in it, and it was signed by a certificate that was issued to whoever, google.com or facebook.com or amazon.com. And then you can create a zero knowledge proof from that.
Yep.
And that means when you bring that zero knowledge proof to a smart contract, for example, the smart contract can say, Amazon said this, and it's completely verifiable because it's cryptographically sealed all the way back to the certificate authority issued to Amazon.com. And so there's like half a dozen different teams looking at that and pioneering it. There's Reclaim Protocol, there's Pado Labs, there's Click, there's, who am I missing? ZK Pass, DAuth are doing a flavor of it for authentication. I think they're slightly different, but yeah, they're all kind of doing something similar. And the use cases and the design space is sort of unlimited, right? Like you can take any data from any API connection or web browsing session, anything, right? And then you can bring it on chain. And then you can interact with whatever logic in whatever smart contract exists on chain. So the most immediate use cases are Sybil resistance, right? But beyond that, it can be basically it's about taking ownership of your data. All of the data that's locked in silos in Facebook, Google, Apple, whatever, that you have to kind of get permission for other people to access. Now you can just take it and bring whatever you want. So that's what I'm most excited about. And those 6 projects I mentioned are pioneering that area and doing amazing things.
Right. I think I remember at least part of those names are also working with on Verax, right? On the attestations.
Yeah, a lot of them are actually. Actually, some of them are building Verax. So Click and Pado Labs are both building out Verax. They're like the core contributors to the project. And they already have tens of thousands of attestations on chain. So for example, Click are doing cool things where they're allowing gamers to like prove how many hours they've played on different types of games on Steam, which gets them like access to promotions and stuff on chain. Pado Labs allow you to prove, like, for example, you've passed a certain verification level on a centralized exchange. So, like, for example, you can say the owner of this wallet address has passed verification level 3, which is full KYC on Binance. So now any smart contract can say the owner of this address has passed KYC, and now I'm legally compliant to, give them under collateralized lending or whatever it is, and that's a big deal. And we saw all the noise about kind of Coinbase doing something similar with EAS. Pado are doing it with basically every single exchange. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing next year.
Wow, that's impressive. Okay, so it was actually a lot deeper dive into reputation things than I expected.
Yeah, it's quite a rabbit hole, unfortunately.
I assume that's basically most of what's on your mind for the next year, right? How are the identity projects going to progress?
Yeah, I always end up being distracted by different interesting problems. I'm an easy person to nerd snipe. So, I mean, identity and reputation is definitely a rabbit hole I'm still falling down. I think that like keeping an eye on the decentralization in Ethereum is really important as well. I think that's something we always have to be vigilant about. Because, the worst thing we can do is be complacent. So one of the projects that I want to get more involved in next year is collaborating with different people who are interested in measuring the effective level of decentralization across Ethereum. So I did some research on that this year and published a paper on it. But I think there's more work to be done. So that's a very, very interesting area because Ethereum changes every year. This year we've got a lot more
Right.
people using layer twos. I think that's going to increase next
Mm.
year, but layer twos themselves are going to change in their character and their nature depending on how decentralized they become. Many of them are starting plans to decentralize the sequencer, decentralize the prover, moved to share sequencers, and then we have Suave is coming online. We've seen DA layers like Celestia. So, so this time
Mm.
next year, Ethereum will be very different to the way it is today, which is the same every year. So that's an area that I have an interest in as well, kind of more of a hobby horse, but something I'll definitely be doing more work and collaboration on next year.
I see. That's great. I hope you can send me a link to the paper you published on the Ethereum decentralization. I'd love to share
Sure.
it
Yeah, sure.
if it's okay. And so I joined the I think it was Saturday. There was a censorship. What the fuck? I think censorship WTF, and there was a lot of talk about the resistance, which is not that ideal as it used to be because the decentralization of different levels of Ethereum is not 100% ideal also. So it was a little bit surprising for me because, wasn't nerding on the decentralization that much. I was more thinking about like security and governance in general. It's like how
Yeah.
much money you have to basically buy 51% and then sway the vote. So that was totally new to me. And I have a almost finished article about this. So
I look forward to
glad that
reading
you
it.
mentioned it.
I mean, that was the one. That
Oh,
was the
for
one.
you, it's going to be very high level.
That was the one event I really wanted to go to. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay on the Saturday for personal reasons. I had to fly out, and I want to watch all the videos from that day. I think Tina from Flashbots, especially, she's fantastic at getting people together and actually discussing like really important things. And so, hats off to her for organizing that event. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that it is a topic that
And
I'm glad
the event was
there
great.
is renewed interest in.
Yeah, I definitely recommend watching it. I think the talks were really cool, not too long, but a lot of them. And so it was yeah, there were definitely, I'm sure you will find topics which will light you up. It was eye-opening for me for the most part, but for you it's probably going to be a deeper dive, notch maybe for some topics. So is there, because I think we are coming to the time when you need to run, is
Right.
there any specific topic which you would like to highlight, any special project you would like to shout out, either from Istanbul or, anything from this year? Because we are almost at Christmas, so it's like, almost end of the year.
Um, so, let me think about that for a second. Looking back over the year, yeah, I think like the biggest project, if I was going to shout out, it's going to be for Verax and EAS as well. I think at the start of this year, I mean, I knew about the whole idea of on-chain attestations, and I had been following the attestation station and optimism, but EAS have really
Mm-hmm.
evangelized the whole idea hugely, and I think it's like a topic that people are generally interested in, and a lot of that goes
Yeah.
at is down to like, kind of like their efforts and kind of evangelizing it. So hats off to them. Yeah, I definitely credit where credit's due. They've done great work. Verax as well, very
Mm-hmm.
interesting, and it's great to see it evolve as more teams join the project. So that's the kind of area and the use cases that we build on top of it that I'm most interested for next year. I think we're going to see some really exciting stuff.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I have to read more of Verax, but it definitely looks like it did a lot of work in a relatively short time. And definitely true about attestations. I keep hearing about it from left or right. Basically, anyone I talk to before or after the podcast, we somehow end up one way or the other around attestations and
Just
identity and
as
reputation
we
things.
talked
So,
about it, if people are interested in attestations, EAS have a lot of information on it. They're in development, but it's kind of going to be interesting as well to see it evolve. But there's also like other kind of focused on off-chain attestations. So if people are interested, check out Ceramic and check out Intuition, who are building on top of Ceramic. They're going to be there's going to be a lot more attention on them next year as well. So if you're interested in that area, I would definitely recommend checking out those projects.
Awesome. There was a guest, I think it was David from Joke Race, who actually mentioned Intuition, and I think I met someone from Intuition on the first day in Devconnect because there was a event which Ceramic organized. I think it was Monday, Rep Connect or something. So it was definitely interesting. I will keep my eye on them. Well, Simon, thank you very much for your time. I know you had to squeeze it into your schedule, but thanks a lot. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope to see you soon again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep in touch. And thanks for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to connect with my guest, or if you're interested in some of the points that were discussed today, just check the show notes for links. And don't forget to subscribe for future episodes. Also, if you are compelled, please leave a review. It helps others to find the podcast, and you can surely share it with your friends to save them the trouble of discovery process. I definitely hope you would do that for me. One more thing, from January 2024, there is an option for the interested collectors to mint the episode or just the episode's art, which is always uniquely created by me for each guest and project. So go check the show notes to find out more. Until next time, keep it colorful and stay positive, friends. Ciao.